Hello, human peoples. You're listening to the podcast network of Gamefully Unemployed. To support us and gain access to great exclusive podcasts like Fox Mulder is a Maniac, Tom and Jeff Watch Batman, Star Trek The Next Futurama, and our latest show, Spiel Boys, head over to patreon.com/gamefullyunemployed. We do game streaming, movie nights with our patrons every Friday night, and you can even commission your own podcast about anything you want. Literally anything, within reason, and we have to do it. You are quite frankly out of excuses not to go visit patreon.com/gamefullyunemployed. That's patreon.com/GAMEFULLY unemployed, which is spelled like it sounds.
I should probably announce our newest sponsor, Gearbox. Big friend of the show, Gearbox. Let's do this. Hi, everybody.
Get for all your gear needs.
Yeah.
What are they selling these days? Oh, turns out they're doing software. They're doing video games.
They're doing all sorts of stuff. Great things.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's great.
My name is David Bell.
Hi, I'm filling in for Tom, I guess. My name's Abe Epperson.
You are Abe. And we just watched Borderlands, Movie of the Year.
Movie of the Year.
Would you look at that? A ladder! Unfortunately, my design doesn't facilitate this type of...
First of all, thank you so much. Our Borderlands expert. Thank you for being on.
Thank you.
Professor Borderlands,
Yeah.
as they call you.
Mm-hmm.
At the start of this, do you want to plug some stuff real quick? Just
real quick.
long. It could be long.
Yeah, real quick. If you like what you're gonna hear coming out of this guy's mouth, if you love my hot mouth gas, you should head over to patreon.com/smallbeans. Michael Swaim, if you know that name, or Adam Ganzer of one-upsmanship fame. We all have a podcast network, including the show you just mentioned. We got some shows with Dave, including Inside Dads with me, and Star Trek: The Next Futurama with Michael Swaim, where you compare Star Trek and Futurama. And I do a show with Tom called Spiel Boys, where we talk about the works of Spielberg. You know all this probably, so yeah, just come on over and marinate in the smooth tones of Abe Epperson.
Yeah. All right. My God, I am so excited. You just saw this. You saw this. I am
reeling, dude. I literally walked in like 15 minutes ago to record this because I accidentally overbooked myself. This movie put me in a mood, dude.
Yeah, did it now?
I think I've calmed down.
Are you happy?
But on the drive back, I watched it, but initially, my thought was that this movie actually breaks the covenant of storyteller and audience.
Yeah, I mean, here's the good news.
Mm-hmm.
The good news is that this movie has bombed. It's made, as of right now, $16 million, and it costs $120 million, maybe more. It's getting completely panned by audience and critics. It was directed-ish by Eli Roth, and I question that because it went through extensive reshoots. It was originally, I believe, R-rated. Mm-hmm. It originally had a different writer. The writer of The Last of Us and Chernobyl, I do believe.
He said that he is not Joe Crombie, which if you go to according to the credits, the screenplay is by Eli Roth and Joe Crombie, who I don't know if I actually did some research earlier because this kind of came out. Right. He might actually be a writer, but he's only got this credit. So a lot of people consider it, this is a pseudonym like an Alan Smithy for writers. But Craig Mazin says, no, that's not me. But that would make sense. He's wants his name off the project.
Yeah, I believe it's not him. It had, I found at one point, because on IMDb Pro, you see uncredited things. It has 9 writers. Tim Miller was brought in for reshoots. It really seems like what happened, I'm completely speculating, is that Eli Roth made a really grisly R-rated movie that perhaps the studios, it seems like the studios just like looked away. They didn't pay attention. And then they saw it and were like, what is this? We wanted like a 4-quadrant like Marvel film. So let's get Tim Miller in here. Let's hastily reshoot and recut it to be PG-13 rated. And boy, you can really tell. I'm not a big Eli Roth guy. And my suspicion is that maybe his version wasn't like amazing either. But that's what it sounds like. And then like, I guess Eli Roth was shooting Thanksgiving and couldn't be back for the reshoots anyway. And boy, I don't think we have to like start with how you liked it.
Right.
I cringed. I looked away at times. I literally hid my face at parts because I was so embarrassed for the people on the screen. Because obviously like Cate Blanchett, Kevin Hart, like, you know, like all the actors, they're not to blame. They signed up for like a R-rated Deadpool style, like we're going to do like a hard R movie that's going to be like bold or something from this director who's known for making like bold R-rated movies. And then this happened and it's...
Yeah, I'm going to get hopefully if my career goes well, I'm going to ask you to take down this episode. But honestly, my knee-jerk reaction, I think I'm a little bit tempered more now. Like, I'm a little bit like, it's just movies. You don't need to get all a huff and a puff about it. But I actually had the thought when I was watching the conclusion of this movie, like the climax.
The climax,
where
yes.
I was, in my head, I was like, this is the most insulting movie to ever be made. Like,
yeah.
I think it's a common comment I've been seeing about this movie online is that it's not even bad in a fun way.
No.
And therefore, why would you go see it? I disagree. This movie is important. It's necessary. As necessary as displaying a corpse of a murderer outside town to deter anyone from fucking with that community.
I get you, because this movie shows nothing but contempt for audiences. Yes. And what I mean is that it tries to do the beats, the things that like, it really feels like a studio driven film where they're like, they'll eat this shit up. You gotta play like some old music, like, oh, remember this? Remember Ace of Spades? You know, like, and then you have to have a special boy and like a prophecy. It's gotta be emotional. You gotta have like them really have this emotional. You gotta have like a Star Wars celebration with fireworks at the end, and it has all the things that like an alien might look at a blockbuster and go like, yeah, we got to put all those things in here. Right. But it's so incredibly soulless. And throughout, it just it puts on a hat, like a derivative hat. Every second is like a new hat, and they don't justify why the hats are being like, I'm going to take the hat off now. Now I want you to feel something. Now I want you to laugh. Now I want you to be excited. And it's like they don't weave it in any way. And this may not be. I mean, it comes down on the fault of Eli Roth and the studio, but like, I don't know if anyone set out to make this way, but there's part of me that actually is like, maybe they did want to make, like, I'm not talking about like 4-quadrant, like risk adverse stuff, because we see that all the time, you know, like, and that is what like the remake of Total Recall 10 years ago was and stuff like that. But man, oh man, this is like their goal was to make the most generic film of all time, and they fucking nailed it. Yeah. My hot take, and people aren't going to like this take, is in terms of like how nonsense the plot is and stuff like that. I don't think this has that much difference DNA from something like the new Deadpool. The difference is that Deadpool is so packed with familiar fan service that it doesn't really need to be cohesive. Like, I'm not saying this is as bad as Deadpool. Don't get me wrong. Deadpool has a lot of charm and is a very fun movie, and I had fun watching. But I think that it's one of those, like, kind of that, like, and we've seen this a few times with movies where, like, someone looks at, like, I don't know, what's a more popularly seen as bad Marvel film, like the last Thor, which, people kind of dumped on. I think studios look at Thor and they go like, oh, okay, so movies don't have to make any sense and we can do kind of whatever we want and everything can be like a weird joke and it can just be kind of, the plot can just kind of be, and then they do this and then they do this and then they do this. And it's like, no, Marvel gets to do that because they've gathered so much goodwill. But if you're making a movie like Borderlands, you have to like earn your keep. And this felt like a lazy sequel to something that was already successful. Does that make sense?
Kind of. I just think that they just made mistake after mistake to the point that you're getting whiplash from it is all.
Yeah.
Like,
it's
the fact that
bad.
Act 1, like Act 3, like I mentioned, is like one of the, like that made me think of the word insulting. But Act 1 is actually like, they're making mistakes that I'm like, I don't know who decided that this would be a good decision, because anyone who studied a movie would know that this is terrible idea. Like,
right.
Like everything is narration. Like at one point in the movie,
clearly post-production recut.
Kate Blanchett does her narration, and at one point in the movie at the beginning, they start a scene. She gets on a bus with a character called Marcus. Yeah. And what do? They have one or two lines to each other, but instead of having a scene that might actually lightly do exposition, it just cuts to a TV that has more narration. So it was like they knew that they couldn't stay too long in her narration, but so they cut to a TV that did more exposition. Also, all of this stuff, who cares about all this exposition? It's not that complex.
She literally before the bus scene narrates over an action scene that they like yada yada, and it's clear that was an action scene originally, where she's like, I came to the planet, I got into a fight, and then I got on this bus, and you're like, wait, that looked like an interesting action scene you just cut over.
Right.
Like, all right, so I really quickly want to clarify the Marvel thing. My impression is that what I mean is that the character development in this feels like they're like, these people. We don't have to go into too much about them. Like, that's what I mean, is it felt like it was like, there's like 6 feet, like, but like we really needed to like these people and they did not do any work for that. But yes, it also does so much world building. It has, I think what it is this also has a lot of the DNA of successful films we've seen, like Guardians of the Galaxy or Mad Max specifically. And you look at Mad Max and it's like, they didn't do this like huge world building with Mad Max. They just get you into the action for that first one, right?
Right. The world building is done in between the lines. It's, look at a shot at that fucking guy. That's a whole story right there. Oh shit, this must be how life is for them based off context clues. It's not, this planet is a piece of shit, but it's my home and I hate it. It's
There's
like
a prophecy. The first lines made me gasp because it was just like, in the beginning of time, there was another alien race and they left these crystals. And I was like, what the fuck is this? Like explaining like the crystals were scattered all over and we built our civilization. And there's like the blood of a true daughter of this planet that we call Pandora, who will unlock and it was like, this is fucking, it was
so funny.
Dead on arrival.
It's so funny that like Kate Blanchett is doing the narration, because I can't help but think of Lord of the Rings, because Galadriel does that shit. So they do like Lord of the Rings basically.
And then they try to throw it away because she goes like, sounds stupid, am I right?
Right.
And it was like, Jesus fucking Christ.
And then the first scene is they do literally like shot for shot Star Wars. A stormtrooper played by Kevin Hart breaks what seems like a princess, but turns out to be Tiny Tina, from a space jail. And the shots look like the shots where he's like, hey, princess, we gotta go. And
only worse. It's all only worse.
It's worse because everyone's catty and sarcastic. Yeah.
But that hallway fight, the geography, it was immediately evident that it's like, no one who shot this could shoot action, it seems, or it was cut, or my guess is maybe it was just cut, like, again, it was shot to be gory and they had to like cut around it, because there's scenes like later the Ace of Spades scene, which is so unearned, where you're like, I feel like they're cutting around, like she flamethrowers a bunch of people, but they don't do like a cutaway. And it's like, yeah, you can't show the cutaway because the cutaway was R-rated, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Like, and it feels disjointed.
Tiny Tina does several times in the second half of the film, which is in character for Tiny Tina. If you play the video game, she is a monster. But what's fucking hilarious to me is that like she has genuine bloodlust, stabs a guy with blades. I think she snaps a psycho's neck. Clearly,
Right.
I couldn't.
Again,
I'm not sure exactly what happened.
Blurry.
But it was so visceral. Like, and then she also just there was flamethrowers, and it's like, what is the point of PG-13 at this point? Like, this is not even a commentary on Borderlands. Like, is PG-13 to shield potentially traumatic content from children? Or is it to convince kids that like blood doesn't exist? Because it feels like they're doing the horrific thing.
Yes.
They're just not showing, like, we're
It's like the
misdiagnosing the
Transformers-
problem.
It's the Transformers movie where they do like these horrific violent acts, but they're robots. So it's like, it's all right, kids. And it's like, no, it's still horrific. There was the only other people in the theater, the IMAX theater that I went to, was a father and his son. And you could tell the father was getting nervous because of this. Because it was like, let's go see like this family-friendly movie, but because they clearly cut around an R-rated movie, the violence is cruel and brutal. It just doesn't show the results,
And they're
but
flippant
it doesn't
about it.
feel. Yeah, it's still just people like shooting people in the head, and like there's the first like bar scene.
Oh my God.
Like several people are just shot while unarmed
I
or
love
defenseless.
that. It almost becomes a story. Like, it happens so frequently in this movie, where what essentially happens is someone like walks up and is like, look, you don't like me, I don't like you, and then Lilith pulls out a gun and just shoots him. So it's like we stop actual scene work. Like, a conversation refuses to be had because Lilith is just killing everyone. Once again, that actually is surprisingly aware of what Borderlands is.
They're trying to do Indiana Jones shoots the guy with the machete, right?
When you do it 9 million times, you basically stutter stop your film. You make it so that you can't jumpstart any scene because you keep doing this joke where scenes stop. It's very strange. And then you kill it with narration, where I'm just like, I was told like 9 million pieces of information. I haven't had a legitimate like interaction between two people who I find like, oh, you have a way about you, and like maybe you're a foil of that other person. It's just run-of-the-mill stuff. Add all that together with the fact that Cate Blanchett, who is a powerful actress,
amazing actress,
also just not in her wheelhouse, right? Like, she isn't funny, and she's not Robert Downey Jr., and they seem like they did want that, which is hilarious considering that Lilith is the opposite of what that represents. Like, actually, Cate Blanchett is not a terrible cast. Like, if you get I know there's some like ageist comments and stuff, but like, I mean, that's a legitimate problem. She's supposed to be much younger. Like, the whole Jamie Lee Curtis thing, where it's like Jamie Lee Curtis in her past was like probably like 30 when she was a child, but it's like Jamie Lee Curtis and Cate Blanchett could not be, like, they have to be less than 10 years age difference there.
I
like,
didn't even
it's
think
just
about
small
that,
things.
but you're right that logistically, the idea that
But I can believe that. I can suspend my disbelief because, whatever. It's not the
I don't
worst thing.
care too much about
But
that.
Lilith is like a very serious, like, kind of. She doesn't do. I mean, I guess she kind of does jokes in that she's like very like strong-willed.
She's supposed to be gritty, like a Han Solo.
But she's supposed like that. She always played back or played off of like the Vault Hunter or other characters who would like take the wind out of the sails. That's kind of how it operates. And she's now doing all of the roles, and it's like, what? I don't understand.
Yeah. The impression I got from her and Jamie Lee Curtis is that they both made big swings in their characters.
Mm-hmm.
And they were such big swings that by the time they had to do reshoots, they were like exhausted by it. Does that make sense? Where it was like in some scenes, it felt like they weren't fully committing to the thing they chose. And it was probably because I feel like they did it. And then they're like, all right, it's been like 3 months. Come back. This was shot in 2021, I believe, and had a bunch of pandemic issues and stuff. So I'm sort of imagining that idea of like, all right, it's 6 months later, you're on a green screen, do the thing again. and it was like, oh God, I was doing such a weird specific thing, and now I have to like, and I know that's the job of an actor, but it just felt like it felt like I was watching the actors lose steam and lose enthusiasm for the movie they were in the movie. Yeah.
I kind of got the sense of that. Plus, I think all of them kind of understood that the script was never going to be there, and they had to devote more time than they expected. There's a sequence for me that really kind of tells me everything I need to know about the movie, which is in the finale. There's a scene, because the whole setup is that Tiny Tina is this clone of this ancient Iridian race, right?
Jesus fucking
and they're
Christ.
like, you are a part of like this, you're going to be consumed by the vault as a part of the opening ritual. And Tiny Tina refutes that. She's like, I'm not going to be consumed. I'm not going to die. In fact, it's going to make me invincible, and I can kill my horrible father.
Right.
And then, so that's her view, and she like stands on the pedestal. And then a bunch of other stuff happens, like Atlas, the bad guy, arrives, and he's like, let me into the vault. No, hold on. Nothing informs her otherwise that any of what she believes is true. But a little later in the sequence, Lilith arrives and is like, I'm actually the special one, so I'll open the vault. And then they cue dramatic music, and Tiny Tina's like, Lilith, don't do it. Don't go. So there's a huge unaddressed character development where she now goes from thinking that this is going to make you invincible to you will die if you stand on that threshold. And I know why they did it. They wanted a scene where they do the heartstrings being tugged thing, but this movie is cinematic dolls or army men. It's decided I'm going to be randomly disposable, and the filmmakers are breaking the trust of the audience. And if it wants me to be invested but ignores even the simplest like machinations of the investment, like I get angry. I get angry as a viewer.
Probably the most insulting part to me was the relationship between Lilith and Tiny Tina, because it's really just a series of balcony scenes. There's the first balcony scene and then the second, where like the end when they're like, I love you, kiddo, and they're like, that was the part, one of the parts where I cringed and looked away, because they had not at all earned any relationship between those two characters. They didn't seem to like or talk to each other much for a lot of the film. And again, it's like you said, playing with action figures, where it's like, and now they're here, and now they're here, and now they feel this, and now they feel that. The ending, that thing you described, is literally Cate Blanchett showing up and going, you're not the special boy, I'm the special boy. And then Tiny Tina going like, oh, I'm sad that I'm not the special boy. And Liz goes, no, you are also special, but for different reasons. And I'm like, what reasons?
It's so funny because they actually set that up, because like Lilith calls her unique after Tiny Tina tells her backstory, which is that she's a clone.
Right.
And she's like, but there's only one of you. You know, clones who are famous
you're like a freak
for not being reproducible. It's like, you actually chose the worst. Like, you could write around this any way in which you want, really. You chose the worst one. It's so funny.
It is really, really bad. It's and then we get superhero. And I don't know, mate, you're a Borderlands expert. I don't remember anybody sprouting flaming wings and being invincible, but like I think like I remember Borderlands having a lot
is a real thing.
Okay, I remember it having a lot of weird fucked up characters, but the Firehawk, you don't get to be the Firehawk.
No,
and I just need to point out, like, when your protagonist just goes in the third act, I am invincible now, I'm like, oh, okay, I'm gonna tune out, I guess.
Yeah,
because it is just that sequence is her just cutting through everybody. And you're like, all right, why am I?
Yeah, when she becomes super powered and like ignites her blood, I don't know really what's happening. Yeah, the way they do it in the game is way better. Like, I wouldn't go to bat for the story in Borderlands 3, but
for sure.
Like, they just show her as like, I can do this thing. I'm a siren. I have magic. We know that there are magic people around. and we don't know the extent of how powerful she is. They use that as a foil for like the enemies later, but it's actually a thing that we've seen before and totally works, which is just you see a person who is just that way. They don't make a big deal about it. It's like they're doing the origin story here because I think they feel like they need to do an origin story and they can't choose a Vault Hunter because there's like 800 Vault Hunters because there's character classes and stuff. So they just chose an NPC who has an interesting story.
It's amazing how focused they were on world building while not focused on the things that matter for world building. What I mean is like once they get into a vault, the bad guy just gets killed by a squid. And I was like, so that there's a squid in the vault. What's in the vault?
What's in the vault?
It's all these blocks.
What were they trying to get?
Amazing.
Yeah, what are they going to get out of it?
Yeah, what are these blocks? It looks like Assassin's Creed shit. And you're like, I mean, I played the game, so like, but I'm trying to step out of knowing the game too much, and I'm just like, explain what the vault is. Like, it's filled with weird magic blocks. He says it's amazing. Then he gets killed by a squid who's just in the vault, and then they leave the vault, and I'm like, who put that squid in there? What was that? You know, like, it's that sort
funny.
of shit.
I mean, it's because here's the thing. Borderlands, and we can talk, and we might want to talk a little bit about Randy Pitchford, who's the creator of it, and he is a polarizing figure because he's a maniac on Twitter, and like he's having a breakdown right now because a lot of people don't like his movie. And I mean, like, a part of me is like, my heart goes out to this guy because he's like, he created a franchise that like Borderlands jokes and like the meta stuff, like shoot me in the face, and that's like a quest, and you shoot someone in the face, and then that's the end of the quest. The idea of like vaults just being like, there's kind of a running gag about how it's like you go to the old fame of antiquity, like we have these vaults, and then you go there and it's just like almost a joke that it's just like guns around your level, like that's the loot, and it usually is it's shoehorned into some feeling of seriousness. Like Roland and Tiny Tina have some. There's actually a DLC that is the Dungeons and Dragons DLC that actually got a good moment because it's like, oh, you're doing this, Tiny Tina, you're doing this D&D campaign because Roland died. And spoilers for Borderlands 3 shit. But like, it's this really engaging moment where it's like she's dealing with her trauma by making everything a joke, and you understand that about her. None of the movie gets even close to that kind of complexity. So there are moments in Borderlands where there are like good like story beats, but on the reg, half of like the jokes, half of the story beats in Borderlands as a franchise don't even work in the tone of Borderlands. And I think it's because Randy Pitchford doesn't really he doesn't know what he wants.
Yeah.
And I think that was the kind of decision when it comes down to like PG-13 or R. It's like, dude, no, you made an R story.
Yeah.
But he convinced himself, or they all convinced him that he could just go with that.
Borderlands feels fundamentally nihilistic of a world to me.
Right.
And like, I remember there were other planets in Borderlands, not just this.
Oh, totally.
This one. But if you're going to make a movie, I see the big case for staying on one planet, right? Mm-hmm. And like opening up, because you need to introduce people to this world, and it's easier to start small. And this is like a common mistake, right? Is like, Star Wars, you look at Star Wars and you're like, it was kind of it was a big stakes, but it was a small story. Mm-hmm. And it's like, you need to start by showing just a glimpse of this world. And when you open it with like, there was a prophecy and these aliens, like, it's like, no, all right. So like, take out all the space shit, because it felt like they didn't know if they were Star Wars or not. So there's like the space bar and stuff at the beginning, and just be like Mad Max then, just be like this nihilistic kind of world where it's like, all right, Vault Hunters, let's get to it. And you start with the idea of like, we're doing a vault hunt, folks, like just start with the bunch of like dipshits out in the desert shooting each other to try to hunt a vault.
Right. Yeah.
And then you instantly introduce like, okay, got it. Everybody wants this vault. Show, don't tell, right? Don't have a fucking video and a series of voiceovers that are like, the vault is very important. Just show people hunting the fucking vault. Show this fun, weird world, and then exist just in it, right? Like, and most of all, show what the vault is. Again, I can't stress enough. Show what's in the vault.
Yeah, what am I worried about? What are they going to get in there?
And never show what's in the vault.
It's bizarre that, yeah.
But like, oh, sorry.
Well, it's bizarre what they leave out. Like, just what they decide is not something that the movie wants to explain. Versus this needs to be, we need exposition on that. It's almost always just like details about the world. Which there is some cool world building in Borderlands. I love the idea that like in this post-apocalypse kind of scenario in space, you have corporations that create guns, and they are all unique, and they go to war with each other all the time, which wreaks havoc on the populations of these worlds that they inherit.
So cool to see some weird guns in this. That would have been so cool.
They more did the service of they just name the gun. Actually, it's cute because I saw myself turn into like a fan a little bit because like at one point Tiny Tina has a huge like rocket launcher, and I was like, I've seen that rocket launcher build. Like they clearly took the 3D model of the they at one point Marcus, who's the guy in the bus, sees Lilith again later.
He goes, I never forget a gun.
I never forget a gun, a flat off infinity, which is a type of gun that's a legendary gun. That his whole thing is that it doesn't need bullets. The reason it's called an infinity, which is a cool concept for a gun, like just an infinity gun, because of some magic thing that's happening in the gun. And they don't explain that part. They just name drop it. Yep. And I'm just like, man, you could actually take some of the charm of these. Like if you really wanted to talk about guns, you could talk about the charming aspects about the world and how it builds it. No, you're just doing fan service in terms of
fan service.
Remember the thing?
Actual fan service would be to match the tone. Like to your point, I think at some point someone making this got into their head, oh, this could be a Star Wars. Like we could make the next Star Wars. And it's like, no, you can't.
No.
This is not the source material for the next Star Wars.
And Borderlands' whole point is that it will never be a Star Wars. It actively fights against it. There's at one point in Borderlands 2, the plot beat is to blow up the ocean. They're thinking of these ideas that aren't necessarily like I don't know where anyone in particular lands on if that's a funny joke or not, but like the point is you cannot refute the fact that Borderlands, in the moment where it's like we're supposed to go do the thing that you'd expect from the special boy or whatever, they're like, wouldn't it be funny if like they didn't do the thing,
Yeah.
And they did the reverse in this movie.
It's Deadpool. Like Deadpool, the first Deadpool was refusing the call to adventure, right? And Deadpool had already been out when they were developing this. And that's why it's wild to me is like Deadpool and Fury Road are two movies that they should have clearly looked at. Right. That they should have been like, okay, we're making like this desert. There's basically war boys as characters. It's like these grunts with masks who are violent.
And the children of the vault.
Yeah, we got all these like weird nihilistic characters, these Mad Max type characters. We got this like anti-hero story where it's like you refuse the call to adventure and they're like, what can we make like a Star Wars about a special boy where someone is like saves the universe? Because they're trying to make it like heroic at the end.
That is kind of what Borderlands 3 was, which also when it came out, a lot of people disliked because it was a story digression from the kind of apathetic kind of nihilism that was like ingrained in the first two. It's beyond me why they didn't do Handsome Jack as a movie, because I don't know if you played Borderlands 2, but it's by far the best character that they've created because he's an absolute monster. He's the villain. And he would make the story a lot more engaging. Also, you don't really need to. He's just a power-hungry monster. I don't know.
Atlas was
woulda, coulda, shoulda.
a
Point is
terrible villain, by the way.
Yeah.
I don't know if maybe, again, I don't want to blame the actor here, but it was just like a real, like, this guy? This
3.
guy.
Not even I mean, I understand they're not trying to do the same story as Borderlands 3, but you have Lilith. Like, I don't know. It's just, they chose, like, the wrong people for everything to fill the roles of people that they already had. Like, it's like, why are you doing this?
At some point, there was a decision where they're like, no, this is a 4-quadrant blockbuster, damn it. This is for families. Let's get Jack Black in there. You know, like,
God, what a waste of Jack Black.
Yeah, and it was so, like, it's so very clearly, I think the biggest problem with this is it's like the shit or get off the pot of movies, where it's like, either completely rewrite what Borderlands is to be a 4-quadrant blockbuster,
right,
or don't do that. And it was like, maybe both, and it's like, no,
I think
not
that's
both.
In the end, which is an observation that we've made a lot in the past, like, just, you know, in the zeitgeist, people have talked about how, you know, studios look at things on paper and say, what do we got? Well, we got these casts. They're great cast. You know, you got your Kevin Harts and whatnot, your Cate Blanchetts. And then you're like, okay, we got the property. We got Borderlands. That's already in an inhabited world that has an incoming fan base who's going to see the movie. We got to make it like a Star Wars, like a Special Boy, because those do well. We got to make it PG-13. So the observation is, of course, it's death by 1,000 cuts, because they fuck their own they fuck their own story by following, like, it's like fantasy football, right? It's like you aren't putting together a team to play in the championship. You're selecting players who will do well based off the numbers, right? And it's actually funny to me, just because the fantasy football thing, that's a fun gaming activity because it hacks our serotonin release or whatever. And that's kind of what Borderlands is. The whole point is it's a slot machine. But they chose to misdiagnose what the entertainment value of the franchise is by making it this other thing. It's very strange.
It's, oh my fucking God. It's real bad.
Doesn't she say at one point, I'm getting too old for this shit?
She absolutely does.
Yeah.
Again, written. I confirm this was written by 9 people. 9 people have credits, and I guarantee a lot of those people were just like collecting a paycheck, right? Which is like, do another pass on this.
That's fine.
Like, no, it's one of those films where it feels like Tim Miller. Tim Miller made Deadpool. I get why they tapped him. He probably is very passionate about the movies he makes. But it feels like by the end, this movie didn't belong to anyone. And so no one, like, I guarantee all these writers and stuff, and probably by the end, Eli Roth, no one felt like they owned the movie and that was their movie, and no one was giving it their A game. Because, like, that line, I'm getting too old for this shit, I was like, really? Just the Lethal Weapon
this
line,
early, to herself.
To herself.
That reminds me of, like, the first time she arrives on Pandora. She, as the narrator, says something along the lines of, like, this Pandora, this shithole, you know. And then she says out loud, narrating to herself, God, I hate this planet. Yeah. And it's like, you just told me the same thing twice. Like, I don't understand what the value of the narration is at this point. And then
her arc at the end is just, this planet's all right, I guess. And I'm like,
I'm
why?
its protector.
Yeah.
I am the Firehawk, and I make fireworks in the sky.
Yeah, because my mom abandoned me and then got a very convenient droid to show up and give me exposition, but only when it scans my childhood picture. So, like, if she didn't go there
with the robot, because they're doing like an R2D2 thing, right?
Yeah, they sure are. And it's just like, wait, what would have happened if she didn't visit that town? Because there's a lot of, like,
go back to her home that she forgot existed. By the way,
that she's randomly shows up at. This whole movie, in terms of geography, this whole movie is shot in a quarry. I believe the same quarry.
Yeah. That's Pandora for you.
Yes, but then and the Vasquez rocks, which I believe they did specifically because I think those are reshoots, right? Like the Vasquez rocks are like, okay, we'll go down the street, we'll go to the Vasquez, we'll clear it out, we'll shoot a reshoot because it's a heavy exposition scene.
I mean, yeah, you look at the game and they're like, what if Pandora is what if Vasquez rocks was a
for
planet?
Sure.
So it's not a bad decision to shoot there, in my opinion.
No, it's not, and it's not. I mean, I would say it keeps under budget to be like focus on Pandora, except this movie cost way too much money.
Yeah, for sure.
But like, it's so green screened as well that it's one of those that's like, look at this wide open space, and it always felt claustrophobic to me because it was like none of that looks real. There's no like I didn't feel like there was a single set really. Maybe when they went underground, those were sets.
Yeah. And Eli Roth really does have a problem with, like when he shoots like dialogue and stuff like that, he understands that like he understands how to like do it, but he is thoroughly uninterested in it because it just turns out to be like medium to medium close-up shots of people talking, and there's no geography or blocking really that matters. He saves that for the action sequences, there's some pretty interesting action. I mean, there isn't any fun in games.
I was going to say there's some okay set pieces.
But there's set pieces that you're like, okay, that was cool. But for the most part,
do much with them.
The most part, I feel like either the fun in games were cut out with all the R stuff, or like they just, like, it's weird to me that they didn't have an idea behind most of the fight sequences.
That was what I was going to say. The fight sequences, from what I could tell, were mostly just standing and shooting. They would stand and they would shoot. And like I remember when they're in the weird sewers, and then who's the fucking muscle? They're
Krieg.
They're Krieg. Yeah, who's completely useless in this and has no charm. Again, I feel like a lot of that character was like, I bet there was some really gory shit he did that got cut out. But
yeah, because he's a maniac. He's almost the hardest. He's the hardest R you can get in terms of the Borderlands franchise because he's constantly bloodthirsty. Right,
and you just don't get that here. But one of the other times I gasped was actually, so a lot of like, we stand, we shoot, we stand, we shoot, we stand, we shoot. And then they get into the sewer, and then Ace of Spades starts going, and they're like, this is it. This is going to be our scene. And they get flooded by the psychos, and they stand and shoot. That's most of that. Yeah, most of that is like there's no like engagement in terms of like them versus, there's no like grappling. It's just these shots kind of circling like Kate Blanchett as she's like, I shoot this way, and then I like flip my gun and I shoot this way, and then I shoot this way. At one point she pops out of a box and is like, and then I shoot out of the box.
Here now,
I'm like, why are you in that box? Yeah, and it's all, again, it feels like they're cutting around like blood, and there's no like choreography. It's just, again, these shots are like, I stand and I shoot, and then they go down the hallway and they're like, we got to get the elevator work, let's shoot down the hallway. And like, you're right, there are like little set pieces where it's like, okay, we have this toxic sludge or like this gate, like the set pieces feel like you could do good action in them, but they mostly just stand and shoot.
Yeah,
it's the wildest thing,
and it's weird, especially because like, I'm not saying this is an example of a great game, but like much like a Jackie Chan fight sequence or something like that, and that's like the top tier. They have in the initial fight where Lilith is trying to take Tiny Tina back to her dad, and they haven't really met yet. They have like a few bits in that fight scene, like Krieg runs at her and jumps, and she uses it as a, teeter-totter, to like blast her all the way up to the top. And that's how she defeats, the psycho, is not that she has to like blast him away, but rather, because he's got plot armor anyway, but rather like a clever way to get out of a scene. That's kind of a game. They know how to do this stuff. Why is it nowhere else? It's strange that they just abandon like any hope of charm.
Have have them constantly get new guns. If so, Borderlands, like that's the one thing I remember playing it is like it had weird and interesting guns.
Yeah,
invent some guns for this. Do weird shit. Have constant weird gun stuff where like so give someone a portal gun.
You already
give someone like a gun that flings someone in the air really fast. Do some
It's
weird...
insane because you've already got hundreds of interesting guns to choose from. Like, you know, like you could have, and it would be cool to watch. I mean, like people who had never seen anything about Borderlands would be like, oh, that's a cool gun. Because once again, that's probably the most charming aspect of the franchise.
And if like
that's a clever gun.
If the ending is supposed to be like this vault doesn't matter, which by the way it isn't. It isn't that no one goes like it didn't matter what's in the vault. What's important is us. None of that happened. They just go in the vault. The guy goes, look at all these cubes. It's amazing. And then he gets squidded and she leaves. And then they're like, well, that's it for the vault. And I'm like, wait, but if the vault doesn't matter in terms of plot, have the vault contain just a really cool gun.
Yeah, there's this
just
one...
do that joke and have them go like, "That was it, a fucking gun."
And then they shoot it and they're
be
like,
"It's perfect, I love it." You know,
yeah,
like,
exactly. You can have people. Yeah, you can have people's reaction to it be like as you would do. As you form the way in which you form chemistry is have different people have different reactions to something. It's funny because I remember playing Borderlands 3 and thinking of, man, if they ever make a Borderlands movie, this is a funny fucking gun. Which is, there's a gun called the Lob, which it shoots this huge sphere of energy, but it's very slow. And so it's the equivalent of like the Whitest Kids You Know slow jerk sketch. Right. So it just keeps like you could walk up to it and look at it and stuff. And I'm like,
funny.
That's intensely cinematic. Make a gun but like once it hits its target, especially if you have someone, it's kind of the same joke as like Austin Powers with the, you know, like the guy who screams, he's almost going to get run over.
You could do a joke where at the beginning of the movie someone fires it and you keep cutting to it, just going through the desert. We should write a fucking Borderlands movie.
Yeah, there's so many good ways you could do fun and games.
Seriously, I kept being like, I want to make this because, all right, for example, have Cate Blanchett or Kevin Hart's character be like specifically obsessed with guns. Like just do work. That's a character trait that's endearing for like an R-rated action movie. Someone who just keeps picking up new guns and going like, "Oh fuck!" That would be really fun, and it would feel like it honored the game in a way.
Right, but it's so much to expect from. They fuck Tiny Tina up too. Like it's not.
I don't know what that one felt. It felt like maybe she had a lot of R-rated lines because she just was like has some. All the lines in this are like just so flaccid and weird most of the time.
At one point, she's like, "Can you get my badonkadonk?" And I'm like, "That's actually not even knowing what the words are." And then another time, they're driving in the piss, area. And she says, "It got in my mouth." And I'm like, that is a joke from 2008, man.
Also, that scene. What's wild about the piss scene is they're driving through the piss fields because they want to have something fun, and they're like, piss is fun. And then you see all the bad guys, the lady, and she's just she's on like a hoverboard flying through. And I'm like, is she covered? And she's
covered in piss.
She's got her like mouth open and like shocking part like that.
And you could do a joke.
Yeah, and it's like
it's
she's
a perfect opportunity.
Eating piss.
I also thought of in my head, and this is once again for the gamers out there. There is a extended buildup in that, like she's like, they're like, roll up the window. She's like, why? Right. Give me one reason. I don't want to do it. And Roland is like, just roll up the window. And they like go back and forth like 4 times.
Way
and it
too
feels
long.
like
I'm like, someone tell her there's piss.
You literally say the words, "It's piss."
Yeah.
Because that's the name of a grenade in Borderlands.
Oh, that's so good.
And it's like, it's right there. What the fuck?
I want to talk about this movie Short Game a bit because like it almost feels like moot to talk about the little moments, but like you mentioned the badonkadonk. That scene is Cate Blanchett shows up, Tiny Tina is asking Innocent, she's like, "Can you get my bunny?" And at one point Cate Blanchett drops her phone very conveniently, and sees that there's dynamite under Tina's bed. And I'm like, oh, okay, this is her. This plot convenience of her dropping her phone shows like her realizing Tina's bad. And then Tina goes, can you get my badonkadonk, which is, I guess, is a bunny. And Kate Blanchett goes, oh, okay. And grabs it and then realizes it's a bomb and goes like, oh, you little shit. And I'm like, didn't you just see dynamite? Isn't that what tipped you off? Like, what was the point of the part where she drops her phone, sees the dynamite? Because that didn't make
there's
her
probably
go,
more
oh, you're
scene
bad.
work. There's probably more conversation before the badonk, and they cut it all out.
There's so many moments like that. For example, the general or the commander or whatever, who's throughout the movie, they really sweatily have a scene where she's like yelling at Kevin Hart, and then Jack Black is like, it sounds like you guys had a prior romantic relationship. And I was like, no, it doesn't. It doesn't sound like that at all. I bet in a cut of the film, it did seem like that, and you had to add in this line. But there's nothing in this version except for him saying it. Then at the end, at the last minute, she goes, wait, what we're doing is wrong. I stand with the good guys. And I was like, why would you do that? Nothing has shown that. And then she gets instantly murdered.
Just
like a joke.
8 other people in the film, you know, like just instantly cut their line off with getting shot.
Yes. And it meant nothing because we didn't know this character. I highly suspect that actress or character had a huge role in one of the cuts.
Probably.
And then they boiled it down to like 3 scenes with her where it's like she has this big turn that is completely unearned, and then they kill her. It was like, so why even have her in the movie? Like she could have just been a henchman that didn't speak.
Why
you did
even have them in the movie?
There's so much shit like that where it's like, what? Why was this in the movie?
It's such a good question. Because I find myself asking this question all the time. It's also, I love that there are just logical, like I wouldn't even, like, they're not even plot holes. They don't matter. They're not load-bearing structural issues. There are ones that I mentioned, like her all of a sudden believing that like the vault is going to kill Kate Blanchett out of nowhere. But there's stuff where it's just like, I don't even think this is a problem that you created with like cutting stuff out. It's just stuff you don't care about. Like one of my favorite ones is I was so occupied in the bar scene. Like at the beginning, the barkeep is like pulls out a gun and is like, no guns to everyone because she's like, you don't have guns in here, that you're going to fuck up my action, you know? And then Lilith kills everyone instantaneously in the middle of their sentence. And the barkeep's like, how do they not have a seat, like a line where she goes like, what the fuck? Everyone ran out as soon as you fired that. I know you're my friend, but like, could you have told me or not done that?
Just like, she just goes like, I'll clean it up, boss. And she runs off, and it's like, that's why it must be that they had to cut out R-rated shit in each scene, because the scenes themselves are inconsistent within the scenes.
It feels like AI a little bit. Like it feels like you are missing a valuable human interaction here.
Yes,
that would at least, like, you're creating problems. You're not there. You go out and write a scene and you try to accomplish all the things you want to accomplish. They may or may not have done that according to their view, but
there's a lot of like,
they created problems.
Yeah, it's like, what is the bare minimum we have to do to push this scene along? Remember when they say they go into the city and they go like, we're wanted, so let's wear masks, and then they wear these masks and then everybody recognizes them?
Yeah, and then they go into another bar and they take their masks off.
Yes, Kevin Hart sees a guy he knows, and the guy's like, "Hey, it's you," and he could say like, "I don't know what you're talking about," but he just goes, "Oh yeah, let me take off my mask and talk to you."
In fact,
this guy we've never met, who's I guess
Bobby
his
Lee's
buddy,
like, I knew it was you when he takes down his like he could have probably gotten away with it of like, I don't know what you're talking about, get the fuck away from me. Because that would be a legitimate interaction at a bar. And Bobby Lee could totally be like, oh, no, well, I know it's you. And they could even have him go and do something with that information. Yeah. But instead, no. he does nothing with the information. He just finds out that it's Roland, and they just go, "That's fine. That will be fine."
They also, in that scene, there's a lot of go here to learn to go here. It's a lot of like the last Star Wars, where it's like it feels like a treasure hunt, where it's like we go here to have someone tell us to go here.
Yeah.
In that scene, the lady running the bar is like, you have to go to this special place with this special like you have to say the word echo to go up this elevator.
Right.
And I was like, okay, we're going to get a scene where they have to get through the city. Cut. They're there. And I was just like,
it's like literally
they run out the back of the bar and they're there.
That's the spot they needed to be.
Yeah. Why did the lady show them a map?
And why do we need to even have a passcode at that point?
Right.
Like, there's no struggle.
She could have just said, yeah, just go out the back and take a left. And instead, it's like this. They present it like you have to do these trials.
Right.
You have to go through, and it was like, no, it's right here. It's right behind the bar.
Don't care about. That's useful for a game because it gives you something like now you have time to walk across the thing and shoot more people. But I will say this. A lot of people talk about and then you do the quest methodology of storytelling. I actually don't find that to be that problematic because I love dungeon crawler movies like Dread or movies like the recent
Jones
Dungeons and Dragons, the new the Thieves one, the new one with Christopher Pine.
Where it's like we have to get this in order to do this,
and then we have to do this, and then we have to do this, but like it's all on how you do it, right?
Yeah. They literally could have still had the scene. You literally just say, I know someone, and they go in and the bar is like a front to where Jamie Lee Curtis is. Where it's like, yeah, just go through the secret door out the back. But instead they like present it as like she's a stop on a quest, and then they're just in the like Indiana Jones or Dungeons and Dragons where it's like we have to get this thing. That is a whole step, right? It's like we have to go get this item. Well, we have to do a heist, or we have to go through these booby traps. Not we have to go back to the back door. And,
right. It's just immensely boring, and they didn't want to do that
and then
sequence.
Kate Blanchett is like, I didn't realize it's Jamie Lee Curtis. No, I don't want to be here. But it's like, this seems like it's where she's always lived. Like, why didn't Kate Blanchett know this place already?
Yeah.
She's like surprised by it.
There's a problem with her familiarity with Pandora and her absolute disdain for Pandora.
Yeah.
Where they want to be threading the needle there, and it just feels like you're both and neither at the same time. Because I definitely feel that she hates Pandora. You accomplish that because you outright just say it 9 million times.
She's telling us, yeah.
And Kate Blanchett is doing this thing the whole time where she's just like pouty and like, I don't like being here. But like in terms of her familiarity, it's all tucked away in this whole story about like, I knew your mom and she thought you were special. And it's all tied to the special one, storyline. And that to me is like, because they were trying to hold it off till the third act, they actually chose a story beat that they kind of were locked into, not expressing most of the movie.
Yeah.
And the problem is then when you retroactively go and say, remember all those times that Lilith was this way about like she actually like Pandora is her home, really, and deep down she's just a good old Pandoran girl. It's like, wait, what scene triggered that I should be understanding that? Which exactly, what scene can you point at?
Oh yeah,
that's true.
It's definitely one of those where it's like you get to these end results, like the ending fireworks where her and Tiny Tina are like, we're best friends forever. Where you're like, oh, I guess that's true. I didn't see that happen, but I guess that must have happened at some point. Like other movies have this problem where it's just like, oh, I guess I guess she likes this place now. Nothing I saw makes me think that at any point.
Right. Also, like, Kate Blanchett was like, look, I just want Tiny Tina. I don't give a shit about you. I just want you and your dad can figure this shit out, you know? Like,
yeah.
That's how that was her ad hoc kind of, way in which she saw it. And then Tiny Tina has a balcony scene where she's like, I'm actually a clone. And I guess that's enough for Cate Blanchett to be like, I have to save this girl because her father's an asshole, I guess. I mean, it kind of connects, but it's also like, you already knew he was a bad father. You could piece that together easily by knowing the guy, which you do, and seeing how Tina's clearly got PTSD.
Right, she has to have a reason to like Tina, and they don't give her that by that balcony scene. You know, like if it was like this idea that she's like, all right, kid, you're all right, but hey, we're going to take you to your father, and that's the right idea. And then she's like, no, my father actually wants to kill me. Then you can see those motivations of like, oh, I guess I'm also fighting your fight. But she starts as like this rogue who doesn't care about anything. And she just, I don't know, chooses to care about Tina in that terrible scene. Because also they're making Tina like run around and like play hide and seek and stuff. But there's not like the Tiny Tina stuff. Like I get what they were going for, but it felt like there was either missing scenes or missing like environments for her to like be like this, like, oh, I'm playful, but I'm a murderer. You know, like they were going for that. And it just doesn't work when she isn't murdering anybody. Yeah,
exactly. When she's not like, and that also justifies why like she loves Krieg. You know,
she comes off as like an insufferable Hot Topic girl. Like that's what she comes off as. Is like
she's like a manic pixie dream girl kind of bit.
Right, where it's like I could see that working if she was like brutally killing people.
Yeah.
But since she's not,
I mean, that's what it is in the game. Right?
Yeah.
She blows up everything.
Like a Harley
gets
Quinn.
in your way. Yeah, like a Harley Quinn. Exactly. And it totally works. I don't know, man. The fans, I've been kind of looking at some of the Borderlands like subreddits and stuff. And they obviously feel like Sun inspired. They say the casting is off. And it reminded me of, I don't know if you've seen the Jordan Peele has this great interview where he talks about notes, like creative notes on what you're making. Like you make a film, you screen it to people, and they tell you what's wrong with it, right? And his thing is that you never believe them that it's wrong for their reasons, unless their reasons are your reasons. You take the time you spent crafting that moment or beat that that the note is talking about, and you just kind of circle it and you say, the note is that it's just not working for that person. And you get enough of those, you know it, something about it is broken and you have to redo it. You'll never get more useful information other than that. So a lot of, it's interesting. What I'm getting at is that if you make a fun, enjoyable thing, it could even break the rules of the universe. Fans will like it. The note is that fans just want to enjoy their thing.
Right.
And I don't know, fuck people who are like, that's not how the canon was. I don't care. I don't think Eli Roth should care. And I think he's kind of said that in an interview. I just know that deep down, if it was fun and the vibe felt right, none of us would care. Because it would be like, it feels right, like it's not broken. But because they broke it, it's like, how do you think that this is going to succeed, man?
It's like, I don't know, the Shining, where it's like, it's not like the book, but he really got the vibe of the book to me.
Yeah.
Where it's like, if you get the vibe of the thing, it doesn't matter if it's quite like it. I think the casting is indicative of a problem. I don't think the problem is the specific casting. And what I mean by that is that Cate Blanchett, Kevin Hart, Jack Black, Jamie Lee Curtis, these are all people who could be good in a movie that's R-rated or whatever. But what that says to me is that the studio specifically wanted people with broad appeal. Right. And that's where it's like, I feel like that's the first realization of like, why would you put Kevin Hart in this? It's like them being like, well, we want to, this demographic and then this demographic, then this. Like, it's not that Kevin Hart is wrong for this movie. It's that it's like, it's on paper, you're like, man, that sounds like they're going for a broad appeal that Borderlands doesn't have, or like a zany comedy. But then you could watch it and go like, wow, Kevin Hart really brought something to this in a way I didn't expect. You know what I mean? Where it's like you can take Kevin Hart and put him. I was actually excited to see Kevin Hart in like a gritty R-rated Borderlands,
playing like a paladin type character. Yeah, like that's what Roland really is. He's like a soldier through and through.
And that would have been great. But sadly, that's
he's doing a lot of what Kevin Hart does.
And Cate Blanchett, I'm like I love her as like a weird Han Solo type. Too bad they don't have that for her. Too bad she isn't really getting to be the rogue. And in fact, it felt like making her like, you're the special fairy girl at the end was like, the fuck is this? This isn't her character so far at all. I thought she was like a Han Solo rogue.
It's also funny as hell to me just because like I know it's supposed to be a twist, so we're supposed to believe the thing that you're expecting is actually not true, but it's just laughable of how much more it makes sense that they cloned a little piece of blood that they got, kind of like the Fifth Element.
Yeah.
We have that makes sense. No, this lady who was born like I thought the Iridians like lived thousands of years ago.
I don't
and
fucking
she's
know.
The daughter of Iridia. Like
again, one of the moments I gasped
40 years ago, apparently.
Yeah,
according to this
where
thing.
I was like, "What the fuck is this?" And why would we care about any of that? Why would that? Why? What kind of movie are you making?
It would have been great if the end of this movie was there's no hero and they just have gotten guns and they just win because of guns.
That would have been the ending
in tone.
Right. Like you're saying, like Borderlands, maybe later they get heroic, but we're making our first Borderlands, right? Again, you look at Deadpool. Deadpool 1, he just gets revenge. That's all he does in the first Deadpool. And they have even the moment where they go like, no, don't kill him, then you'll be like him. And he goes, fuck it, and kills him, where they subvert a common trope, right?
Right.
And so this is presenting prophecy and special boy shit. And so it still would have been a little eye-rolly only because it's now at this point, subverting something is almost not subversive, but like it would have at least been made more sense for them to be like, yeah, none of that actually mattered. We're just a bunch of lovable fucking rogues who are in it for ourselves, and we get what's ours, and at the end we get paid, and that's it. And then like for Borderlands 3 down the line, have them have a higher calling, much like Deadpool eventually has to do like more heroic shit,
or like John Wick.
But first movie, just establish who they are, and they should just be a group of like dirtbags who are in it for themselves. Like that would have been the more appealing thing, and just work on their relationships and have like a couple moments where it's like, yeah, they actually give a shit a little bit, just have them save Tina. Make that, in other words,
Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yes.
But
R-rated.
You forgot to do the chemistry parts.
R-rated Guardians of the Galaxy with a little Mad Max is how you pitch this. And I don't know what the fuck happened.
Well, PG-13 is very compelling because it's a lot more money. So
I have a theory that Eli Roth also like his violence is always really cruel. Like there's a shot in this where the psychos are shooting at like hung up dogs, and I highly suspect the original those were people. And shit like that. And it's all to say that I feel like this is a weird thing to say, but Eli Roth can't do like fun R-rated violence. He maybe thinks he can, but I think his violence is cruel usually. And so I wonder if maybe the R-rated version of this just felt cruel. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Where it was fun. Like, yeah, it's like you look at Deadpool. It's weird to say, but Deadpool is like family friendly R, if that makes sense, where it's like, look how edgy we are, but we're also kind of safe.
Yeah, because it's all in their reaction to it. No one is like haunted by, like a quirky thing that Deadpool does. He will murder people, but he'll be like, this is fun. We're having fun. And do a little dance. And so it feels like they kind of mop over it, which is the running joke of Deadpool. That's why it works.
Which is also what it should be, for the record. Like, there's nothing wrong with it being that.
Yeah.
And I guess this probably should have been that too, but I just have this suspicion that Eli Roth just made it way too real. Which, I there's a whole conversation about what violence should be and how it should be depicted in movies. And maybe it's better that violence is depicted real, but like, it's just clear that maybe that's what they wanted. They wanted fun and they didn't get fun. And so they hastily tried to make it fun, and it's nothing now.
Yeah, like what if he came back, he's just like, war is hell. It's just like, it's the equivalent of come and see.
Yeah.
and Lionsgate Films is like, what the fuck is this? What do we do with this shit?
Yeah.
I do and don't think that, because Eli Roth, I don't know. It's tough because the interviews that I've seen with him talking about this movie, he might be doing the thing where he's just trying to deflect any negative press by saying it was my idea, which is something I think a director does both to get credit that they don't necessarily deserve, but also to jump on a grenade when it's legitimately like a bomb.
For sure.
And so Eli Roth could be doing that kind of stuff, and he knows it's kind of shit. And he's like, well, like all the decisions, I stand by those decisions. Because he says stuff like, I just wanted to make the most fun movie possible. And he says things like, I have the best, like, which is hilarious because it's just such a silly, like, directors shouldn't think this way. And I know that he's capable, but it makes him really feel amateur, which he has an interview where they're like, so you have all this cast and stuff like that. And he's like, I just wanted to get the best actors. And it's just like for the roles, right? And he's like, no, just the best actors. And I got them. And it's like, okay, well, that's a highly subjective thing.
Right,
and that's also not
like,
how directing works. Because
who's the most famous people interested in being in this movie? Is that what it is?
Is that what it is? Is that the best actors? Because like that seems like what you did, which is tough. That's tough. So I don't know exactly how much of it is like scrambling to do damage control versus legitimate like incompetence, I guess is a brutal word. I mean, I don't really mean to throw so much shade at Eli Roth because we don't know the story. He could have been
it's
completely manipulated or just chained down by decisions that were, by the studio.
It's like a bar fight where you're like, I don't know who started this. How could I know? You're all shit-faced.
Yeah.
It's that where I'm like, I can't weave this. I can't like untangle this car accident.
Right.
And I'm not going to, because I have no inside information or expertise on it. It's just like, I'm just going by the impressions I get watching this movie of like what I think might have happened, based on some of the way it's edited and stuff. Because it really is, it feels like it must have been really R-rated, because it felt like they really had to untangle like
I could see that,
the violence from it, because it feels disjointed in the moments and in the broad strokes. You know what I mean? Where it's like the scenes, it feels like it was like edited, when you watch a movie that's edited for television and it's like Pulp Fiction edited for television, you're like, man, this is barely a movie now. It gave me that vibe where it's like some movies can't be edited for television, and this felt like one where it was like at a certain point they should have just said, well, it's R. What do you want to, what are you going to do? The only way to make it an R is to start back from the beginning. That's the vibe I got from it, which was like, this is either make the thing that you agreed to make or just don't put it out, because what you put out is like really slapdash.
Mm-hmm. But it was also produced by the people who did Morbius, so like I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know how much I can have faith in that there was a lot of good people fighting for the right thing in this movie.
So you think they're just like, all right, new business strategy, make movies so bad they become memes.
Well, you know what else they got coming out this year? Kraven the Hunter.
Oh, yeah. I'm so excited for that.
Yeah. But they're also behind all the Spider-Mans, like.
Right.
And I don't know. Man. It's so. Like, I honestly think that everyone at the higher ups, all the Marvels, all the head studios, Disney, like Warner Brothers, are just freaking out because they just don't know how to solve the problem with the mathematics.
Yeah.
And that's how they got so successful, is the mathematics. But the reality is the mathematics stood on the shoulders of brilliant movies and fun entertaining like theme park rides, like Iron Man and
Well,
John Favreau and Robert Downey Jr.'s contribution to that.
what's wild to me is I can see when this was developed in 2021, them having that Marvel brain problem, and like we've said it before, where it's like Marvel just kind of fucked up studio minds, where like everybody was like, oh, I guess we're making cinematic universe 4-quadrant. PG-13, paint by number, like where everybody wants to be Marvel, but it's like not everybody can be Marvel. You simply can't. In fact, no one has succeeded but Marvel.
Right.
And take a hint from that. Be something new. But what's wild to me is that then, by the time they made the R-rated version, and in 2023, when they started doing reshoots, by that point where they're like, we have an R-rated thing on their hands, what's wild to me is that Deadpool and Mad Max had already been these big things. And you think, and there was other like big R-rated movies, and you'd think that like the same way they look at Marvel and they want to glom onto it, you'd think they'd look at, I guess, Deadpool and Mad Max. Mad Max wasn't a huge success, I guess, because it's just like Deadpool's a huge success, and it's just so weird coming out of this huge success of like R-rated things and like Logan. You'd think
that
they'd
it almost
look at
feels
this,
like if only they knew, they would have made the right decision,
But it feels like they still had that choice because like Logan and Deadpool were already hits, right?
Sure.
And like I feel like it's weird to me, I guess, that they didn't glom onto that and go like, oh, we're making like a Deadpool fucking Logan. All right. Because they could have easily done that, and it doesn't take any original thought. It just takes like looking at what else is successful. But they like clearly just went full speed ahead. We're going to try to make this for everyone. Way too late. And then by the time it came to us, it's like what, one Marvel movie a year. Deadpool 3 is like the biggest fucking thing that's R-rated. It's that thing where it's like they tried to get on something that's now way too late and never would have worked to begin with.
Yeah. I think that this kind of got through development hell, and that sucks, for everyone involved. But is a series of bad decisions regardless. Because this movie, I think I just have, like I said at the top of this podcast, I think I've calmed down and it's fine and it can just exist. And like, I don't even particularly care about, Borderlands having a very highly successful property. It'll be fine being a video game.
I think
this is perhaps the most insulting movie ever made my senses.
Yeah, my hope is that this is a Judge Dredd to Dredd situation.
Right.
And what I mean is that in 10 more years or whenever, because the original Judge Dredd was, they didn't want to be Judge Dredd. And they tried to make like a 4-quadrant blockbuster based off a comic book that isn't that.
Yeah.
My hope is that maybe they'll just give it another shot and say, okay, let's actually make it this time. Let's make it, and we'll make it for less money, and we'll make it for what it's supposed to be or what it really is.
Yeah.
Because I guess my only disappointment is that I actually see Borderlands, an adaptation, you could make a really good thing with that. Just make it smaller.
There's a lot of aspects about the story that could be a lot of fun on the screen.
Yeah.
And they tried.
Yeah, it's not hugely original or anything, but it's fun enough world that it's like, could have gotten a good Borderlands. Didn't get one. I see why fans would be mad.
You and me, Dave, we're going to write it. It came to me in a dream.
We'll call it Betterlands.
Nice.
Yeah. And
yes.
it'll be better.
It will be better. Betterlands 1.
Gearbox, if you're listening, you must be so into us by now, listening to this.
You're probably like, we love what these guys think about our movie.
Get us involved. We'll write it.
I actually really do feel bad for a lot of the people involved in this. Like, I actually don't care about how the stars, they're fine. They got paid well. They're the faces of movies, so they'll persist, like Kate Blanchett is still Tar, there's not going to be a problem.
She got that Tar money. Yeah.
But I worry about this could hurt Eli Roth's career. I'm not an Eli Roth guy. I don't think that he's necessarily in my wheelhouse, like the type of movies like I didn't care for Hostel or Cabin Fever to begin with. But like it feels like there's so much that he's hiding in an interview about and the fact that he left for reshoots and stuff like that to go shoot Thanksgiving, I think it is, tells me that either he didn't care, which is damning because a director should care, or he was just, tied down the whole time. And someone who's tied down the whole time by a studio for a project that you might actually be in love with, that's a really sad thing. And I feel for the guys. So I don't know where the truth is. But it's not like he can do what like Mason did, which is just say like, I fucking
not mine.
I did Last of Us, motherfucker. I got job security. Yeah. Eli Roth I'm worried about his career based off of this because it is everyone.
He signed up for Hostel and Thanksgiving too. I think he'll do a lot of the thing. Eli Roth has that weird thing that's happening, and it happens to a lot of indie directors where they're like maybe big budget movies,
right.
Where they're like he did House with the Clock in Its Walls. And it's like that. It's like I think of Robert Rodriguez with fucking what the fuck was that movie? Battle Angel, where they're like maybe big movie, and it's like I honestly, again, I'm not an Eli Roth fan, but I'm like some people just keep making the things you make. Like you don't need more money. Well, maybe he does, but it's like just do your stupid Thanksgiving movies, do your Hostels stuff. Just do the things that you're apparently.
There's an audience for it. There's people who love when you do that stuff. I don't know if there's anyone on the earth that loves this movie, who thinks this movie rules.
Well, there are 5-star Rotten Tomatoes reviews, but they feel more spiteful and angry somehow than the 1-star ones.
They could be trolls or AI. Weren't you going through them? Did you want to read any of them?
I'd have to find them.
Oh, okay,
a lot of them read like drill posts. Yeah, or like Ken M, where it's like they like randomly would capitalize words that didn't make sense. Like the kind where it's like you're either 11 or drunk, or an AI, where it's like people were like, well, I think this movie's actually good, and watch me perfectly articulate that in the fact that none of my review doesn't make any fucking sense.
Right.
Or like there was one that was just like they said words that are from the video game. I loved it. And it's like it's the most depressing 5-star reviews.
That has to be made up. Like that can't be a real person, can it?
I hope not.
A person who's
there's a lot of people in the world
about words being said.
A lot of people in the world,
There is.
And listen, I don't. True. This is one where it's like whatever. If you like it, good luck to you. Good luck on your journey.
On your journey. You're going to have a great time, I think.
Yeah. Go on Twitter and really defend this movie. Go nuts, I guess.
Go nuts, I guess.
Holy shit.
Oh, man. It's pretty sad, man. I was reading about Randy Pitchford. Like, there is a content creator named Killer6 who is like this guy who has since Borderlands 1 been like the Twitch guy for Borderlands. Right. And like they bring him on to like, oh, come play Borderlands 3 while it's in development and give us your notes. And like he is in bed with them as like a liaison to the fans kind of thing. And he came out with a video that like honestly just said like it's not that great. And the creator of Borderlands, Randy Pitchford, like blocked him and started talking shit on this kid who was like, I love Borderlands. I made my whole life Borderlands, my career. And I just didn't think it was the greatest. He didn't even say anything scathing. I'm just like, we can't have social media. We need to put it away. We need to take social media and throw it in the trash, man.
It reminds me of when I was fired from Cracked, when we all were. I applied to 2 places and I almost got one. But the places were writing for the web pages, like the blogs for the official Star Trek and the official Call of Duty. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm so glad I didn't get those jobs, because I can't imagine having to be like, the new Call of Duty is so good, you guys, or like this new Star Trek series, Picard, so good, I love it.
I love
and it's like, oh my
Picard's
god,
in it.
like it's those aren't like terrible, but it's one of those where it's like, I'm so glad I didn't have to like
Become a shill for
defend
it.
Call of Duty. Oh Jesus Christ! Like I don't know. And like they were very nice for the record. And this is coming from someone who plays Call of Duty, but my goodness, to have to be like hardline for even things like I like. To have to be like a hard line.
You love Star Trek.
Yeah.
But they can at any time make a terrible decision.
No, it's good no matter what. It sounds exhausting to have to be like, this is my thing.
Yeah, I mean, like, it's just rough. What it exposes to me is that people love dearly the things that they create, but sometimes they can't take it when, like, people don't enjoy it. And especially, it's got to be heartbreaking for this Randy Pitchford guy to see all the fans that he wants to please and know that he, at the end of the day, there's no one to blame but himself. Yeah. And he still takes that insecurity and blames everyone. It's not the children, it's not me that is wrong. It's the children.
Yeah, it's definitely, it feels like that. Because this one is funny, because this is one that I feel like almost everybody involved could have just said, like, look, we fucked it up. Like, let's move on. Because you look at behind the scenes and you're like, I feel like everybody could wash their hands of this and just go, yeah, we fucked it up. There was a lot of infighting. Nobody knew what they wanted. It ended up being bad. Let's move on. You know, like, I don't think it, like, I am willing to believe that this didn't fall on any one person. I don't know if that's true or not, but they could certainly pitch that right now and just say, like, whoops,
and
sorry,
people
everyone.
Would be like, that's okay.
Yeah.
I think most people would be like, most of the normal, reasonable, healthy people would say, that's fine. Yeah. It's okay to make mistakes.
Right. It's always sad because it's like people put their heart and soul into this. Little movie sets are always like little families. Nobody sets out to make a bad thing. But you can just say, like, at the end of the day, like, well, like, I'm proud of a lot of the stuff in this, but obviously overall it just didn't form into
there's sometimes
cohesive movie.
You're definitely tapping into like a tragedy, an aspect of tragedy that comes from being like a creator, someone who's like trying to put their heart and soul into something, or they want to and it doesn't work. There's footage that I saw recently and I've not seen anybody pick it up, but if you look at like the featurettes and stuff like that, there is a Borderlands, like everyone's rapping, and I feel like it's like Kate Blanchett's last day or something like that. Like it's probably before the reshoots, but it's like one of those candid moments where it's like they do the slate or whatever, and like it's all everyone just clapping and being grateful and looking at each other with, like puppy dog eyes. And Kevin Hart, you would not, I swear to God, Kevin Hart is in like the back of the shot and he is sobbing.
Wow.
Like, straight up sobbing. And at first I was like, that's a bit because he's a comedian and he's doing like get into character, but it just goes the whole way. And it's like, I think he actually really wanted this movie to succeed. I don't know. Maybe he's a maniac.
Yeah, I think for a lot of these people, it's like, oh, this is going to be like, again, my Guardians of the Galaxy. This is going to be like a whole fucking thing. And you get on those sets and they're probably pretty good sets, at least until the reshoots. And you're like, this is a whole thing. I'm part of like this big franchise, that's going to go on for a while.
I see what the angle is. And like, if we nail it, people are going to love this shit.
Yeah.
And I think it was just all cut out.
Yeah.
I think that's what happened.
I think so.
It's bizarre, man. Movies, man. We really need to figure out a way to... we need to just streamline how to make good movies. If we can, like,
we could have a robot, like a computer.
Yes.
And we put in prompts. And they give us really good movies.
We don't have to do anything. We don't have to do anything. And then that part is done.
Yeah.
And all we have to worry about is just having good times and vibes.
Yeah. Yeah. and talking about cryptocurrency.
And crypto, baby.
Yeah.
Gearbox loves us. Our one sponsor, Gearbox.
Our one sponsor. Get that gear crypto.
Get the Gearbox NFT.
Yeah.
Everybody go out and buy some stock in Gearbox.
All right, I guess we're done.
I think we're done, man. I have nothing else to say. That's more than I thought I would say about 2024's Borderlands.
Yeah, see it now. So do a double feature with Harold and the Purple Crayon together at last. The new Barbieheimer, border crayon.
Border crayons. I'm gonna be around in a week. We're gonna do this again.
We're going to do it again. We're going to do it. But for now, Abe, thank you so much. And you want to do pluggies? Plug and plugs?
I mean, they heard me from the top. Patreon.com/smallbeans.
Cool. And there's also patreon.com/gamefullyunemployed. We do co-podcast with the Small Beans. With we do what do we do?
Star Trek: The Next Futurama.
Star Trek: The Next Futurama. Yeah.
We do Inside Dads too.
Yeah, that's not a co. That's over at the Beans.
Yeah,
check it out.
True. That's true.
Yeah, I think that's good. Just gonna shout out. We have Friday night movie nights. You guys have Monday night movie nights as well.
Yeah, we do on our Discords.
Yep.
Respective Discords.
And I'm gonna be honest with you. At some point, I'm gonna slap on Borderlands. I know it in my blood.
Yep. And we're going to all watch
Artemis
it together.
Fowl. Yeah.
And probably drink.
Yep. And sad. Or drinking sad.
Have a good drinking sad, you know?
Yeah.
That's probably what I'm going to do after having seen this. God damn. I can't believe so much has happened today.
Yeah. It's a big day.
It's only like 2:30 and I feel like my whole body needs to shut down.
All right. Go lie down. Hey, listen, our music is produced by Chris Corlew. You can find him on twitter.com as the Corlew or go to shipwreckedsailor.bandcamp.com. Our channel artwork is produced by Michael Vincent Bramley. For more of his work, go to mvbramley.art. Our episode artwork is by Justin Brown, available on Twitter as Justin T. Brown or at artnessbyjustinbrown.com. And finally, additional artwork is by Starlene Hodge. You can find her work at starlenearts.com or on Twitter as StarleneX. Cool. Goodbye.